You are listening to the Cricket Corner podcast with me, Vatsal Vora. Hello and welcome back to yet another World Cup preview episode here on the platform. I hope you are really getting pumped, really getting hyped for the World Cup, as am I, because there's so much discussion, so much things to talk about heading into the World Cup. And we have already discussed about Team India and their chances heading into the World Cup. So I think it's only right that we shift our focus away from Team India for a moment and talk about their competitors and who are the teams which can go toe-to-toe against the likes of Bumrah, Jadeja, Ashwin, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, and can possibly take the World Cup to India and possibly win it if India fumble here or there or not, because I personally still feel like India are the favourites, but that might be biased. But what else can I be talking about if the podcast is centered around Indian cricket? Jokes aside, I personally feel like there are three teams which have a realistic chance of competing toe-to-toe against India and possibly being a bit better than India on their day. And those three teams are England, Australia, and surprise, surprise, South Africa. Let's start by talking about Team England, that is the England cricket team. We have heavily covered England on this podcast as well. We talked about them in the Ashes. We have talked about Australia in the Ashes, in the Border Gavaskar series. So it's only right that these two sides are also up there with India as the primary favourites for the tournament. I personally feel like Australia, England, India and South Africa would make it into the semi-finals of the World Cup. Earlier this month, I think I tipped Sri Lanka to be the dark horse of the tournament. But the more you look at a team like South Africa, the more you are impressed by them. And I have changed my mind and I've gone with South Africa as the fourth side which will make it into the semi-finals. But let's preview India's main opponents, and if you want to call it their main threats heading into the World Cup as well. And as we rightly mentioned before, those teams are England, Australia and South Africa. I want to start by talking about England since they are the defending champions. They will be gunning to becoming only the third nation to defend their World Cup crown. I remember West Indies did that in 1975 and 1979. Australia have done it multiple times themselves. I think 1999, 2003, 2007. So they have won it 3 in a row. And England are looking to become the third side to do that, 2019 and 2023. The main core of the England side, which won the World Cup back in 2019, is carried forward into the 2023 World Cup. And it's really important from the English side of things that they have those players still in their prime and who can still contribute at the highest stage of world cricket, because those players who are going to help England defend the World Cup are in the league of their own. You are talking about the likes of Johnny Bairstow in there. There's Joe Root, Ben Stokes has returned from retirement and will be competing in the World Cup as a specialist batsman. Of course, you cannot forget the captain Jos Buttler. There's of course Mark Wood, Chris Wokes, Adil Rashid, Moeen Ali. So a lot of players who you expect to be featured in England's strongest starting 11 are part of the squad, and it's really a bonus from their side of things. Then you add in a few youth in the mix with the likes of Sam Curran. His brother Tom Curran was there in the 2019 squad. He's not there this time. It's Sam Curran who is going to represent the Curran family in India. You of course have Harry Brook in there as well, who can come into the middle order and score some important runs. So England have a really good core, and I think the core is the reason why they have been tipped as one of the favourites alongside India and Australia for the World Cup. If you look at England's lineup, and I have jotted down a playing 11 comprising of their strongest players, and it goes as follows. You have Malan and Bairstow opening. Then you have Root at 3, Stokes as a specialist batsman at 4. Then you have the skipper Joss Butler at 5. And then comes the magnificent all-rounder contingent from the English side. And those contain the likes of Liam Livingstone, Moeen Ali, Sam Curran, Chris Vokes, Adil Rashid and Mark Wood. I think the strength of England here, let's forget the strengths. One thing I wanted to talk about before we talk about England's strength and weaknesses is that the inclusion of Harry Brook in the squad. And to fit in someone like Harry Brook in the 15-man squad, England had to leave a one-day veteran and one of their limited overs modern greats in the form of Jason Roy back in England. Really disappointing as far as Jason Roy is concerned. He was amongst the news earlier in the summer when he decided to not sign the England contract. He gave up on his England contract to play franchise cricket in the United States in the MLC. But he did state that his primary goal is still to play for England and be part of the World Cup contingent. Will be heading to India. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances and Harry Brook's good form heading into the World Cup, it was either Malan, Roy, or Malan and Brook, or it was Brook and Jason Roy. Now, David Malan scored 100 against New Zealand in the series leading up to the World Cup, so that was a no-no. Harry Brook was in great form, not only in the one-dayers but also in the T20s, which England played against New Zealand right after the Ashes series. So I think Harry Brooks really cemented his place due to those performances, because let's not forget, he was not part of the England setup, which was not part of the provisional squad, should I say, which England announced right after the Ashes series, but he made his way into the squad. And it was either him or Malan, to be honest with you, because him or Harry Brook, because someone like I was going to say Janemon Malan, but no, it's David Malan, isn't it? It's not the South African. Malan's form up the order has been quite crucial, and I think that's the reason why England were not so hesitant in dropping an opening batsman like Jason Roy, because David Malan has shown that he's capable of opening the innings alongside Johnny Bairstow. So I think England's top order has really cemented its place now, and in all these kerfuffle, there's all of a sudden England have a left-hand right-hand combination of the order as well in the form of Malan and Bairstow. So that's a positive swing to things while Johnny Bairstow has been dropped. So yeah, as I said, Malan, Bairstow, Root, Stokes, Butler, Livingstone, Ali, Curran, Vokes. You bat till number 9. That is unbelievable. Like, England have so much depth in their batting lineup. It's unbelievable. The batting depth that England possesses is the reason why these superstar players are able to go so hard up the order without worrying about a loss of wicket. Even if England are, let's say, 130 for 5 in 25 overs, you can still count them to be playing at 6.5, 7 runs an over. That is down to the sheer depth they have in their squad. And as I said, it is one of the longest batting lineup in the World Cup, if not the most longest batting lineup. As I said, they bat till number 9 if they play the lineup which I forecast them to play. But then again, we have seen in the Ashes that even Mark Wood can tonk the ball here and there and score those quick fire 20-30 runs like Mohammad Shami used to do for the Indian side, and that is also reassuring. So if you include Mark Wood as a potential all-rounder as well, you bat till number 10. That leaves only Adil Rashid, who is not able to bowl, and that is just fantastic to see. So I feel like England have a batting lineup that can chase down any total which comes in front of themselves. I personally feel like if they bowl first and they are put in a target of, let's say, 320 runs, I don't think England would bat an eye on that target, because they have the strength, they have the depth as well. someone like Ben Stokes at number 4. We have seen how dangerous he can be with that 182 against New Zealand. So their batting is in form. They have veteran IPL players in the form of Bairstow, Butler, Livingston and Moeen Ali, who have played in India for so many years now, and someone like Josh Butler who has been a revelation in the IPL. He has nearly mastered the Indian conditions. Having someone like him in the middle order is also really vital as far as England is concerned, and I have no question marks over their batting lineup. The only worry I see in this England setup is their bowling. Now, don't get me wrong, the likes of Wood, Vokes, Curran are excellent bowlers, but they are not world beaters if you know what I mean. Like, they're not Cummins, they're not Stark, they're not Hazelwood, Rapada, other, like even India have some great bowlers like Bumrah, Siraj, Shami. I personally feel like the bowling might be a worry. And let's say if England are to bat first and they post something like 290, 300, do you then back these bowlers to come out there and get you the wickets? In English conditions, yes, but in Indian conditions, it's going to be a little tricky for their bowlers in particular. I think England and Josh Butler would be really looking at someone like Adil Rashid to have a really important tournament, because he is their primary spinner heading into the World Cup. Yes, you still have someone like Moeen Ali and Liam Livingston who can give you a few overs here and there. So England can at least expect, how many should we want? 25 overs of spin from those three spinners if the deck is really turning and has nothing to offer to the likes of Chris Vokes and Mark Wood. You expect Adil Rashid to give you 10 overs, and between Ali and Livingston, can you then expect another 15 overs? I think you can. Someone like Liam Livingston is not a 10 over bank in my opinion, but he can still give you those 4 or 5 overs here and there. Similar to Moeen Ali, he can give you 6-7 overs in the middle if required. He has not bowled a lot when it comes to him representing the Chennai Super Kings in the IPL, but when given the ball, he has done really well. I remember a 4-wicket haul in the 2023 IPL. I don't remember the opponent, but he was towards the early stages of the tournament, and he has shown that he has the capabilities of bowling in the right areas, getting the turn out of the wicket and troubling the batsman. So personally for me, the fast bowling could be a problem, but if the wicket has some turn in it, I can fully expect the likes of Livingston, Ali and in particular Adil Rashid to exploit the turn. So that shouldn't be a problem, but then again, I think the batting takes the ascendancy as far as the England side is concerned, and the bowling, while it lacks a little bit of quality here and there, but I think it's very much good enough to propel them into the semi-finals and possibly in the finals as well, because whoever comes up against this England side is going to face a lot of trouble, and that is mainly down to their batting and their depth, which they have shown in the batting lineup as well. So for me personally, I would predict England to at least be in the semi-finals hunt. Top 4 qualify. I expect England to be there. I think they have got enough quality to defeat the likes of Pakistan, Sri Lanka. There's Bangladesh, Afghanistan and Netherlands. I think these should be wins for England, and I think then it comes up against and when they come up against the big nations like India, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, that's when they might struggle here and there, but I still expect them to get a few wins against the top opponents and make sure that they qualify for the semi-finals. Yes, England do have that, how shall I put it, the odd defeat here and there against the minnows. They lost to Ireland in the 2011 World Cup. They lost to Bangladesh in the 2015 World Cup. They surprisingly lost to Pakistan in the 2019 World Cup at home soil, despite Josh Butler scoring a century on that occasion. So they have that, how shall I put it, the odd defeat, the surprise defeat here and there against a minnow or an underdog. But and that can very much happen against again in this tournament as well, because this time it's in different conditions. You can see them slip up here and there, but I think they should still be fine and should progress into the latter stages of the tournament. Let's move on from one team competing in the Ashes to another team which has actually retained the Ashes unlike the other one, and that is Australia. I personally feel like there is a bit of similarity between the Australian setup and the English setup heading into the World Cup, and that is mainly down to the all-rounders. Similar to how England will heavily rely on their all-rounders for not only the bowling side of things but also the batting side of things. I think that's exactly the case with Australia as well. More to do with the bowling than the batting. Yes, the likes of Maxwell, Stoinis and Green are really good with the bat as well, but I think that bowling is going to come in really handy, and that is mainly down to just one reason, which is the exclusion of Aston Agar. Now, when you talk about the great Australian teams, you don't usually talk about Aston Agar. When you talk about their test side of things, you talk about Nathan Lyon. When you talk about their limited over side of things, you talk about Adam Zampa. But Aston Agar was an interesting exclusion because you have dropped him in favor of Marnus Labuschagne. Now, don't get me wrong, Marnus Labuschagne is coming into the World Cup on the back of some brilliant form himself, 100 against South Africa in South Africa, and has performed really well against India in the recently concluded ODI series as well. But then you had an injury to someone like Travis Head, but you decide to give him time and retain him in the squad, and then you drop a specialist spinner in the form of Aston Agar to make way for Marnus Labuschagne. I'm sure Australian selectors are wise people, but I personally don't understand the reason behind the same. But yeah, Marnus Labuschagne is in, and the exclusion of Aston Agar means these Australians, the Australian management, be it Andrew McDonald, their coach, and the captain, Pat Cummins himself, are going to heavily rely on someone like Glenn Maxwell to give them 8 overs in a one-day international in the World Cup. And I think that's where I feel like their spin is going to be an issue. Adam Zampa is a magnificent spinner. Yes, he conceded 100 runs in South Africa, but the conditions are going to be really different when he comes and plays in India, and I don't expect him to be that expensive in the World Cup. So that's not a problem at all. But their second spinner is Glenn Maxwell. If Travis Head is fit, then yes, you can obviously rely on him to give you 4-5 overs as well. But yeah, I think Australia will be relying on Maxwell a bit too much for his liking. But on the other hand, he picked up 4 wickets in the third one-day international at Rajkot against India. So you never know which kind of Maxwell turns up. He is capable of picking wickets, and he's shown that. But will that additional added pressure, added burden on his shoulder propel him to better heights, or makes him feel like under pressure and does poorly with the ball? Only time will tell you that. But apart from that, Australia are yet another side which has a really strong and really feared batting lineup. We'll talk about their batting right now. We'll talk about their bowling in just a moment. But yeah, their batting is outstanding, and similar to England, once again they have a steady opening pair who are one of them is right-handed, one of them is left-handed, so that makes things really easy for them heading into heading into the World Cup when they open the innings. So they have David Warner and Mitchell Marsh to open the innings. David Warner left-handed, Mitchell Marsh right-handed, if someone's thinking about that. Steve Smith at 3, Marnus Labuschagne at 4, and then after just 4 quality specialist batsmen, you are straight away into the all-rounders and the wicket-keeper. So you'll have Maxwell at 5, Alex Carey, the wicket-keeper, at 6. One of Stoinis or Green at 7. I'm sure it has to be an or and not an and, because Maxwell has to be there in the team to give you the spin options. And I think when it comes to the seam bowling all-rounder, there is a choice between Marcus Stoinis and Cameron Green. And then their outstanding world-class seam attack of Pat Cummins, the skipper, Mitchell Starc, and Josh Hazlewood. Regardless of the format, these three are right up there when it comes to a lethal trio of fast bowling. We have seen two like fast bowlers hunting in pairs in twos, but these are the fast bowlers who hunt in a trio, and Cummins, Starc, Hazlewood on their day have to be there in the lineup, regardless of the conditions and regardless of the opposition, with Adam Zampa, their sole spinner, coming in at number 11. Now, question marks surrounding Pat Cummins' captaincy. Someone might say, I think I read it somewhere that he's just captained in 4 one-day internationals in his entire career. But I don't think that is going to matter when it comes to the World Cup, because he has had enough captaincy pedigree in his bag. He's captained in Australia in the Ashes, have retained the Ashes in English conditions. So that shouldn't be a problem. I don't think the captaincy side of things is a worry for them. Something that is a big plus as far as the Australian bowling lineup is concerned is the return of Mitchell Starc in the limited overs setup. Mitchell Starc and World Cups just go hand in hand. I think he's, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, has he picked up I think he's picked up 49 wickets, has he, in 2 World Cups that he has played in. I think I saw that when I was doing the Wisdom quizzes on sporkle.com. 49 wickets or something in 2 World Cups. I think he picked up 22 in the 2015 World Cup, 27 in the 2019 World Cup. So he is charged up when it comes to the ICC Men's T50 over World Cup, and it shows. He picked up a hat-trick against the Netherlands in the warm-up game in Kerala as well. So he's striking at the perfect time, and it's really threatening to see as far as an Indian fan is concerned, or someone from the outside who is not an Australian fan. So the return of Mitchell Starc is going to be a big plus. Hazlewood in that game where India were going guns blazing, the likes of Shubman Gill and Shreyas Iyer with KL Rahul in the middle order. I think Josh Hazlewood was the one who had pretty much the best economy rate in that game. I think when it comes to the economy, controlling the pace of the opposition, I think Josh Hazlewood is one of the best bowlers to do that. Second in the all-time bowling ranking when it comes to ODI cricket as well. So he's finding his feet. He's probably found his feet in limited overs format. So that's a big plus as well. I think another positives when you look at someone like Australia is that they have an opening stand and a middle order which is contributing in all formats of the game. The likes of Warner and Mitchell Marsh have been going berserk up the order. We have seen Australia kind of playing like England and India when it comes to opening the innings, that they go heavy early on, and in the first 10 overs don't be surprised if Australia are 75-80 runs in the first 10 overs, because that's how they are going to play, and that's how they have played not only against South Africa but against India as well. We have seen that they are not taking things lightly up the order, and someone like Mitchell Marsh has taken that opening slot like a duck to water, like a perfect glove for his right hand in a way, and that is dangerous, because someone like Mitchell Marsh, he is the perfect opening batsman as far as the Australian side is concerned. Yes, he's capable of playing at a ridiculously high strike rate of 130, 140, but he's giving that strike rate with some healthy run contribution as well. He's sustaining that strike rate for a prolonged period of time. We saw that against India where he scored 96 of very few deliveries, didn't he? So not only is able to play quickly, is playing quickly for a prolonged period of time, and that gives you a real, like a trampoline spring kind of a scenario for the Australian innings. Because let's say he bats for 20 overs and the Australians are already 150 or 140. then it allows, the likes of Steve Smith, the likes of Manas Labuschagne to play that natural game, because we know both Smith and Labuschagne are quality batsmen and are very much capable of playing at higher strike rate. But those kind of players, when they play the natural game, play at a strike rate of 85, 90. And I think an early start provided to these middle order batsmen by the likes of David Warner and Mitchell Marsh is going to be really beneficial, because that takes away the pressure from the likes of Smith and Labuschagne. They can go around playing at 80, 85 strike rate, and the reason why they can afford to do that is because they have an even more destructive lower order with the likes of Maxwell and Stoinis, and even Alex Carey is good enough to play at a healthy strike rate as well. So I think it's, as far as the Australian side is concerned, their batting lineup is attack, anchor the innings, attack. So the top order will attack, the middle order will anchor the innings, and the lower order will go berserk as well. So that is a great combination to have. For me personally, I would rank Australia slightly above England when it comes to the list of favorites for the tournament. As I have already mentioned countless times in the podcast, India are the favorites. I'll rank Australia as the second favorites, with England as third, and South Africa, about whom we are going to talk about in just a moment, are the fourth favorites for the tournament. But yeah, I think Australia's team composition, their balance is to the point, and I think that's the reason why they are, at least in my eyes, the second favorites for the ICC World Cup in 2023. And regardless of the form in which Australia have come, yes, one can argue that Australia are not coming into the best of the forms. They have lost the series against South Africa. They lost the series against India as well. Regardless of what team composition they played, they still lost the series, didn't they? Even though, because India weren't full strength either. But yeah, I think they have enough quality, and when it comes to ICC tournaments, you have to regard Australia highly, because they have the tendency to perform at the big stage. They have players who are capable of performing at the big stage as well, and I won't be surprised if they make it to the final and even win it on their day. On their day, I feel like Australia can beat anyone, regardless of the conditions, as I've mentioned this before. And that first game, is it on Thursday or a Friday at Chennai when they face India? I think that is going to be one hell of a game, and what a way for both sides to kick off the tournament, because India versus Australia, both sides' first game could be both sides' last game of the tournament as well, should they make it to the finals and face each other. So yeah, really, really excited for that particular match as well. Be wary of Australia. Be wary of Mitchell Starc, if I'm personally honest with you. But yeah, once again, quality side, and I expect them to go deep into the tournament, just like England and India. A PSA to all the fans who are going to visit the Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai to watch the Australia versus India game: please don't wear yellow on just one occasion. I know you guys love your yellow color. I know your wardrobe is filled with yellow t-shirts, yellow socks, yellow pants, but for one day at least, don't wear anything yellow, and please wear blue when you support Team India in Chennai. So yeah, that is the Australian side of the things in this podcast, and as I've mentioned, quality side, and I expect them to go really deep into the World Cup and are my second favorites to lift the whole thing. The last team which I want to talk about and are my underdogs heading into the World Cup, but I still feel like they can do massive damage to any top sides, and that is South Africa. I personally feel like South Africa have clicked at the very, very right time. As I said in the podcast when talking about Team India's chances for the World Cup, I talked about that you need recency bias when you come into a big tournament like the World Cup, because you want your big players to be performing at the biggest stage in the last couple of months, in the most recent times, and that is exactly what South Africa have managed to do. And you look at South Africa and you instantly think of, World Cup disappointment, chokers, bottlers. Those are the kind of words you associate with South Africa when you play a big ICC tournament. Yes, they have not gotten past the semi-final stage in their entire history, Or did they play in the final? No, no, no. They haven't played in the final, didn't they? Oh, just correct me in the comments because I personally feel like they haven't played any finals. But yeah, I think South Africa over the years have always had strong sides heading into the World Cup. And I feel like this year is no exception. Yes, on one hand, you don't have the likes of AB de Villiers. You don't have Faf du Plessis, but you still have enough quality players. You don't have someone like Imran Tahir, but then you have got enough spinners in your side to make way for. And I feel like South Africa are going to come in with a really good squad. And the reason why I have picked them to be the fourth favorites or the fourth side which will make it into the semi-finals is once again mainly down to their batting. The top six which South Africa possesses can be as destructive as anything. I feel like the top order is good enough, but their middle order, their lower middle order is something which can be havoc and go berserk against any opposition bowling. I was losing words there because the quality of their middle order is just fantastic. Let me name you the top six, okay? So Quinton de Kock, the wicketkeeper, we all know how dangerous he is up the order. We have seen him do it time and time again for Mumbai Indians, for the Lucknow Super Giants as well. So we all know how good he is in the Asian subcontinent conditions. Temba Bavuma, yes, Temba Bavuma, the captain, is not the ferocious attacking-minded player, but he's still giving you important runs. He's still giving you valuable runs and a huge plethora of runs as well. He's not just contributing here and there. He's giving you big runs. So that's your opening partnership. Someone like Rassie van der Dusen, he's not coming into the World Cup with the best of forms, but Rassie van der Dusen is a one-day specialist. Someone like Virat Kohli, he knows how to play a one-day innings. He knows, similar to Virat Kohli, not at such a high level as Virat Kohli, don't get me wrong, but Rassie van der Dusen, he can play in those two gears which someone like Virat Kohli does at number 3. He can anchor the innings. He can support the batsman at the other end on the strike. He can complement a partner in that regards. He can play attacking shots as well. So Rassie van der Dusen at 3 is exceptional. And then this is the tasty lower middle order which I was talking about. Here it goes. Aiden Markram at 4. He can give you some overs as well, so don't forget about that. Henrik Klaasen, we have seen his destruction in the IPL, so he knows Indian conditions quite well. So Henrik Klaasen. David Miller, I don't think us Indians need any reminder of the fact how dangerous someone like David Miller is. He's done it time and time again for the Kings 11 Punjab Kings and the Gujarat Titans. So that is your top 6. Quinton de Kock, Temba Bavuma, Rassie van der Dusen, Aiden Markram, Henrik Klaasen and David Miller. And then at number 7, to bridge that gap between the batting and the bowling, you have someone like Marco Jansen. Marco Jansen, tall fast bowler, left arm pace. His bowling, let's keep his bowling aside for a moment. His batting, that is what I want to talk about. He scored like some 47 of 23 deliveries, didn't he, against Australia, of course. And he's very much capable of destructing his way destructing his way towards the lower middle order, towards the lower order of the South African innings. So he's there at number 7. And then you have some quality pacers and bowling as well, likes of Rabada, Ngidi, Maharaj, Shamsi. Those are some really, really good bowlers who can bowl really well when it comes to bowling in the Indian conditions. Someone whom I have not talked about in the middle order is Reza Hendricks. He played against Australia as well. I think he played in all 5 ODIs against Australia, didn't he? So he's there if you want to, replace someone like Klaasen, want to give him a rest here and there. You have someone like Reza Hendricks, experienced player, 34-year-old. So he can come up and be a menace against any opposition bowling lineup. And then as we talked about Marco Jansen, but his contribution doesn't all just lie with the bat. He is very much capable of performing with the ball as well. The Now, since we have started to talk about the South African bowling, I wanted to discuss the absentee, and the big absentee as far as the South African side is concerned is that of Hendrik Nokia. Nokia is arguably one of South Africa's best bowlers across formats. I'm not just talking about limited overs format here, but his absentee has gaped a major hole in the bowling side of things. I think Nokia's role in the South African setup was that to pick up wickets, to keep the run rate down in the middle overs. But now I think that will be a huge miss for South Africa, and could be a huge miss for any team which has Nokia in their setup. So that is going to be a big miss. Then you expect a lot out of someone like Lungi Ngidi and Kagiso Rabada, because Rabada is a kind of bowler you want him to bowl up front and in the depth. So then you expect someone like Lungi Ngidi to give you some good overs in the middle order. There's obviously Gerald Coetzee, the 22-year-old who plays for the Johannesburg Super Kings and the Texas Super Kings. He's had a good recent time in the South African setup as well. So you can even count on him to give you some few wickets here and there. And then when you talk about their spin options, I think having someone like Marco Jansen at 7 could allow a team like South Africa to play two spinners in the form of Keshav Maharaj and Shamsi. Now, Markram is also a kind of spin bowling all-rounder option. He can give you 4-5 overs here and there, so that shouldn't be a problem. But if you want to play just one spinner, then you can leave someone like Maharaj out, play Gerald Coetzee in his place. So that is some permutation and combinations that South Africa can look into exploiting. But in my personal opinion, I think you cannot count someone like Aiden Markram as an out-and-out spin bowler who can give you 7-8 overs. You need at least two good spinners who can give you, let's say, 18 overs between them. And I think Maharaj and Shamsi we could see a scenario where South Africa play both of those players together. But yeah, I think that fast bowling, despite the miss of Hendrik Nokia, I think Marco Jansen, Kagiso Rabada and Lungi Ngidi are very much capable of threatening any bowling attack. Now, the reason why I've picked South Africa as the fourth favorites or the fourth side which will be playing in the semi-final is because I think the expectations, the pressure is not on them this time around, if you personally ask me. In previous editions of the World Cup, South Africa always come with not the favorites tag, but one of the sides who will do well in the World Cup because they had some quality players, likes of A.B. de Villiers, as we talked about, Graham Smith, Jacques Kallis, Hashim Amla, Imran Tahir, Sean Pollock, those kind of players. Yes, none of them played together, but I'm just naming some good South African players from the past. But this time around, yes, they do have a quality squad, but I think the pressure doesn't seem to be on their shoulders. There's no pressure, but there are eyeballs, and there's a difference. Having those eyeballs doesn't necessarily mean that there's pressure to perform. I think there's no pressure to perform. They're coming in as one of the underdogs, as one of the dark horses to derail the campaigns of bigger teams like India, Australia, and England. But I think you should not sleep on a team which has so much pedigree when it comes to their batting. The likes of Van der Tussen, Markram, Klaasen, Hendrik when needed, David Miller. There's Themba Bavuma, Quinton de Kock up the order. I think they have got quality batsmen, and I personally give them the edge to qualify for the semi-final, and that is mainly down to their lower middle order, the likes of Markram, Klaasen and Miller. If one of them gets going, they are very much capable of playing at strike rates of above 120, 130 and can propel them to a huge total or help them chase down those big totals as well. So yeah, South Africa are right up there for me as well. So I personally, as we have talked about in this podcast already, I personally see 3 teams challenging India and possibly beating them on their day, and those are England, Australia and South Africa. Now I want to end this podcast by obviously talking about the other teams which I left out in this discussion as teams which can trouble India, and those are primarily Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and New Zealand, it's almost criminal from my side to leave out a team like New Zealand out of World Cup contention for not qualifying in the semi-finals to an extent. But I personally feel like they still have a lot of quality in their squad. Don't get me wrong, the likes of Tom Latham, Kane Williamson is back. They're obviously Trent Bolt, Southey, Mitch Santner. They have got enough quality. Yes, an aging side, don't get me wrong. All of their key players are well above 30 now. So there's a big transition coming in as far as the New Zealand side is concerned. But yeah, I personally feel like New Zealand would be up there. I won't be surprised. Let's get that thing out of the way. I personally won't be surprised if they miss out on. I won't be surprised if they qualify for the semi-finals of the World Cup in place of either England, Australia, or South Africa. I won't be surprised if they make it in the semi-finals because they have got World Cup pedigree. They have been finalists in the last 2 World Cups, semi-finalists in the last 3 World Cups now. So they have got record behind them. But I personally feel like the likes of England, India, Australia, and South Africa are just a smidget ahead of them when it comes to the quality of their side. But once again, New Zealand are, as I said, exceptional, not only with the bat but with the ball as well, and they could trouble bigger sides. But I personally feel like they might be just short. Someone who would be just short is Pakistan themselves as well. Similar conditions to how they are used to playing, since they also are part of the Indian subcontinent. Some have tipped Pakistan to make it into the top 4, and I can see why. They have one of the best batting lineup as well. Imam Hulaq is great. There is a Babar Azam, Mohammad Rizwan, who recently scored a century in the warm-up games. Then of course their bowling lineup. Yes, they are without Naseem Shah, but then again the likes of Shaheen Shah Afridi and Haris Rauf are in the league of their own. Shadab Khan, wonderful all-rounder. So they have pedigree, and there is no denying that fact. But I personally feel like they're not heading into the World Cup in the best of their forms. They didn't have the best of the Asia Cup series as well. They lost against India, didn't they, in that game in the Super 4. So yeah, I think they have got enough quality, but I feel like they will be short of their targets because Pakistan in the last few World Cups have not done well, to be honest with you, and I think that trend will continue in the 2023 edition as well. Sri Lanka, on the other hand, are missing key players, aren't they? Like Hasaranga is not there. There's doubts over Theekshana as well, isn't it? Or is he out? I'm not quite sure, but those would be some big misses as far as the Sri Lankan side is concerned. Yes, you could say that they are coming in a bit of form, that they made it through the Asia Cup final, but then again, we all know what happened in that Asia Cup final, didn't we? So we cannot. Yes, you should not have that against them. They on their day, they are very much capable of troubling the bigger teams. As I already mentioned in the early stages of the podcast, I did see them as the dark horses to qualify for the semi-finals, but then again, I am pipping South Africa above them now. But I think Sri Lanka would be there up and above the top of the tables, and I think they'll miss out by a few points, by a few wins here and there. But only time will tell. There's no denying the fact that this World Cup is going to be one of the closest fought World Cups in recent memory. As we have already discussed, India, England, Australia, South Africa right up there, and New Zealand, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka are very much capable of beating any of the sides on their given day as well. All 3 of those sides have enough quality in their team, and I won't be surprised if either of them make it to the semi-finals. But for me personally, I would still go with South Africa, England, Australia, and India in no particular order. If you have stuck this far and you want to know my predictions for the World Cup, I personally still back India to win it. I back myself for an India versus Australia opening game and an India versus Australia final game of the tournament as well at Ahmedabad, with India clinching their 3rd one day World Cup title, but only time will tell. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I just wanted to talk about some of the competition which India have to face heading into the World Cup, and I think the competition is strong, but I feel like India are strong, if not stronger, if you know what I mean. So yeah, let me know your thoughts of this podcast, and let me know your favorites to win the tournament as well. You can tweet it at me at Mr. Vatsal Vora or the Cricket Corner podcast's Twitter account. If you have enjoyed what I have talked about, make sure you are liking, sharing, and subscribing on YouTube. If you are listening this on any audio platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcast, then make sure you give me a follow, give me a rating. And for the time being, yeah, this is me, Vatsal Vora, signing off. Ciao for now.